proverb, I am because we are, is the foundation of the ACBN YouTube channel. Tap in for all of our remarkable content and ecosystem mobilization through the phenomenal practitioners and thought leaders we engage on this channel. In the words of Adrienne Marie Brown, things are not getting worse, they are getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight to pull back the veil. Get ready for another amazing ACBN powered interview.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Elders Speak. My name is Jamila, and we have a very special guest today, Elder Anan Lololi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Elder Anan, please go right ahead and introduce yourself to the family.
My name is Anan Lololi. I was born on the north coast of the Amazon in a country called Guyana. I could say I had a very interesting youthful experience. I also was able to have a special high school experience that really focused my life. I always like to say I had the wonderful opportunity of having the great Black historian Walter Rodney passing through my high school. Wow. And also that high school experience influenced me a lot. And my experience growing up in a country that was socialist, pretty interesting experience. There are two socialist parties, and I had a communist party. The focus of government of feeding, clothing, and housing yourself after independence. And I see that as my first experience of decolonization. And it wasn't the normal, you get independence and you continue, same way. It was a time of change in many countries in so-called third world, especially the Caribbean and Africa. So that influenced me. I came to Canada, I would say 77, 78. That was another new experience for me. Just before I left Guyana, I embraced, because I grew up in a very religious family. My mother, I always like to say, she's a God sent. God the Almighty sent her with her spiritual beliefs that really grounded me in being a spiritual person that believe in the Almighty. And I must say, I give thanks for the Almighty for giving me the strength to be here today. I give thanks for my ancestors for being around me and encouraging me, seeing the vision. I like we say in Sankofa, you had to look back to move forward. So I migrated to Canada around 77, 78. It was a wonderful experience because just as I came, I got involved. I was introduced by a cousin of mine to a community center in Regent Park called Afri-Can. That experience I've never seen. I'm involved in nonprofit for the last 27 years. I haven't seen a Black institution of that model as yet. They were elders. When I say elders, it's folks who were like 2 or 3 years, sometimes younger than me, who were running this community center in the Regent Park. If you don't know about Afri-Can, that history needs to be written. People like Lillian Allen, Ato Seto, the Gaia Rhythm Band, and my special band that really influenced me, Truths and Rights, with people like Kwame Williams, Abner Dengel, Moja, Nata, Iwater, great Iwater, musician, my brother. I'm not going to leave out some people, Van Steins. That experience with that band it really shaped my sense of where I need to go as an adult. Right. So I came in this country 3 months after I got introduced to this community center that really gave me a sense of purpose of my work that I have to do that has influenced me from that time to this time. And we had a team that we use as young Black liberationists we would say create to relate to the struggles of our people. And that has been a mantra all through my life of serving community. I know you got some questions to me. I hope that introduction.
No, that was amazing.
Yes, I started a family. I got a son. His name is Zakaya Tafara. He's now the Executive Director of the African FoodBasket. I also have a daughter who lives on the north coast of the Amazon in Guyana.
Wow.
And as a family with my sister Tafari, we together started the African FoodBasket.
Okay. And this was, when did you start the African FoodBasket?
The African FoodBasket. Okay, so I must say the Truth and Rights experience, without no apologies. I would say that, but most people say this was the best reggae band ever in this country. Some people may dispute that, but it was the spirit of the band. The band was, I would say, the foundation of the band was Rastafari.
Right.
And I embraced Rastafari just before I left Guyana to come to Canada. So as soon as I come to Canada, I came to this community center where the Rastafari way of life was a respected way of life within this particular institution in Regent Park. So with that, the experience of having that leadership experience through Afri-Can, I went to school, I studied business. I had a great co-op experience at this famous members co-op, the Big Carrot, that I learned a great deal about natural foods. And also I got the opportunity to peruse some magazines to learn about food security.
Right.
So in 1995, came out of school, my first idea was to start what we call an ITAL restaurant. You know, Rastafari, they call it the ITAL Liberty.
Yes.
ITAL Liberty, it influenced, that's the foundation of my life with my social life and my spiritual life. And the ITAL Liberty is basically looking at all things natural. And food plays a very important part of that. And I have been living as an ITAList for over 45 years. Some people say I lived as a vegan, with a plant-based diet for 45 years. So that influenced my way of looking at the work we did with the African FoodBasket from 1995.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, amazing work. So just before I get into the questions, I'm just genuinely curious about the food sovereignty, like the food basket that you have going on. Is that something that you do with the community center currently?
No, the community center, actually the Afri-Can Community Center, it lasted from about 77 to about 80, 81.
Oh, okay. I understand.
And then it folded, but it birthed some great artistic talent.
Okay.
Especially the musical talent, because out of that community center came people like Lillian Allen, Devon Horton, who passed through, Clifton Joseph, Truth and Rights, the Guyap Rhythm Drummers. And it's artists that really made a mark on the Canadian Black artistic landscape. And if I hope that they make this documentary or movie someday about that experience, because that is history in Canada where we're looking at Black arts. I also talk about the Mutadi Drum Festival. These are people who were part of that experience of Afri-Can.
Right, okay.
There's one other band, Tropical Experience. A good friend of mine as a teacher, Joe, he lives in, I think he lives in Washington, D.C. presently. Yeah. So the African FoodBasket and the whole experience of Black food sovereignty evolved from 1995. And I would say the foundation of the direction of the African FoodBasket came about a year or so or two after we started, because we started as a nonprofit food buying club. The experience of the big carrot of cooperatives, it influenced me, but I had previous influence because in Guyana, after independence in 1996, it became the first cooperative republic in the world. Now, that is very significant to me and my experience, because people of African descent, we are basically people who are cooperative. We don't have that capitalist bone in our skin, but some of us pursue it. But the cooperative democracy, as Chancellor Williams said, that is our sense of well-being as a community.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit and transition into, I suppose, like your eldership. And I guess one of the first questions that I have for you is, can you share key characteristics that eldership is, or that represents eldership?
Key characteristics.
Yes.
I would say age plays an important part of it, because experience teaches wisdom.
Right.
And also the ability to have good moral values, because elders usually transfer this knowledge usually to the younger generation. And moral values are very, very important of how you live, the respect for family, the respect for community, and also the respect to make sacrifices on behalf of community, and also to continue being able to learn, so that it's not a business of sharing that knowledge. Right. Because the eldership is about sharing the knowledge that you acquire over a long period of time in age. Now, age doesn't necessarily, is not the full criteria, because I got some old people who it could be a problem. So, but it definitely play a part in the whole concept of Sankofa, of looking back to move forward. Yes. And as a person of African descent, I must say, I get to know eldership is a very important aspect of the way of life of people of African descent, because we are oral people. So you have griots who would acquire this knowledge, and you could always sit down under a tree and listen to the elders. In our environment, it's different. Now, as a person who grew up in Toronto, one of the most diverse community of people of African descent in the world. We have people of African descent from over 125 different countries. And I think Africa only have about 70 something, and not quoting me, but it's around that ballpark. And then you have countries in the Caribbean and Latin America, and also in the United States of America. So all these folks live in Toronto and live in Canada, but Toronto is definitely the center of the universe for people of African descent in Canada. I'm getting myself in trouble for that, but the diversity of the city, it's tremendous. So the whole idea of eldership, it plays an important part living in this city, navigating different communities of people of African descent. And for me, that has been the most wonderful experience that I could hear about Zimbabwe, South Africa, Eritrea, Ghana, Senegal. Is like, wow, this place is so special.
Right. Wow. Yeah, appreciate your response there. You did drop a lot of jewels. So from your perspective, why are elders important in our community? Especially, you speak a lot about Toronto. So why are elders important to the Toronto community?
Elders, people, as a person of African descent, eldership is very important, because we have to pass on knowledge, because we live in a country where white supremacy is very dominant. So this is Black History Month. Imagine that. We have to have a history month. We have to have a history month just to get some of our culture. While in the wider society, the colonizers, their history is every day.
Right.
You know? And we live in a country where anti-Black racism is systemic. So the words and the remembrance of elders plays a very important part, because we have to impart to our children certain knowledge. If a police stop you, you got to do this. So some cultures, they don't have to say that. But because of colonization and anti-Black racism, we as elders have to say, okay, this happened to me. Because a lot of young people in our community, like, for instance, I've seen right now in Florida where they want to take away African studies. African studies are so important. Black studies, so important to we as African descent, that we should get as reparation. That's the money that have come already to make sure we know, and we know about Africa, we know about Black culture. So elders have to make sure we pass on our experiences, especially about systemic racism. How our young people don't be fooled by, okay, I by BIPOC. No, you as a person of African descent, you have a distinct culture that need to be cultivated, because systemically it has been taken away from us. That's why I'm speaking to you, my dear sister, in this language called English. I would like to speak to you in Twi or Amharic or one of these languages from Africa. But this is our reality, and we have to guard it. So the work of eldership is to maintain our dignified and royal culture of being people of African descent. So eldership plays an important part in carrying on the values that we had from time immemorial.
Right. Well, ashe. So as a community member, how should we honor our elders? Like, how can we honor our elders?
Shower the elders with love, with resources, because I would say, like, I was at a retreat with NAPSI last August, and as president, I am one of the first eldership program in NAPSI, and we had a conversation about eldership. Elders need to be looked after. Okay, there's supposed to be a special place for elders that they could live in their whole lives, because some of us are what we call frontline battlefield soldiers. We're not with the system, but still the work we do is very important. And sometimes doing that work, the accumulation of wealth, of being a capitalist, that is not on our radar, our agenda. So we need to be looked after, because what elders contribute is very valuable. So elders need to be honored. They need to make sure that the last days, they live in a comfortable house, they are fed, they have the resources if they need to read, you know what I mean? But they shouldn't have to worry about paying rent and buying food. They should be pampered, especially by the young generation, so that we could be able to still continue feeding the younger generation with the necessary knowledge and acquiring more knowledge to give a sense of where we need to go as a people.
Right. So you touched on it a bit, but let's kind of look more at the role of eldership. So in your ideal world, what role do you see elders playing in a healthy community? Like let's say the day-to-day or the weekly, monthly, like what roles do you see this elder or elders playing in an ideal world?
From my personal experience, I like to be the example. Okay, without no apologies, I could safely say the concept of Black food sovereignty has been my life's work for the last 27 years. And I haven't seen anybody within Canada with the passion of Black food sovereignty like myself. I'm seeing a lot of younger people now stepping up to the plate, but for me, that is my life's work. So I consistently try to engage young people to impart this knowledge of Black food sovereignty. Now, it could be any other area of Black sovereignty, because right now is a whole new movement, a Black movement of sovereignty. And when I say sovereignty, is that we're taking charge of our communities, because we realize colonization, it seems to be want to continue. But the Black movement is decolonizing, and we're defining our own futures. So the responsibility of elders now to the different, we have people from over 200 different ethnic experiences, people of African descent in Toronto. So we need to institutionalize eldership in Toronto so that you could know an elder from Somalia. What is the experience for an elder from Ghana, an elder from Zimbabwe, an elder from Senegal, an elder from Nigeria, and all the different elderships in all the different ethnic groups in these countries. And we have to make sure we have that knowledge documented and imparted to our generation of what we call Black young Canadians who have this rich legacy of Africa. Because some countries, some cities is just, one, African Americans are in Kingston, Jamaica, just Jamaicans. But when you come to Toronto now, wow, you got in food alone, in music, we got such a rich variety of experiences. So eldership needs to be institutionalized so that we could really bring all that knowledge together for our future generations. So there can be this university of eldership of people of African descent in Toronto, so people come from all around the world to know about Black and African eldership. Right. So our responsibility is continue being a moral and experience example for the next generation.
Right. Wow. That's the first time that I've heard that. Very interesting perspective to institutionalize. So basically bring all the elders together and have their knowledge and information be part of like the way we grow in the system, like in some way, shape, or form, but it's just somehow part of it all. But I appreciate that. So what is the significance of rites of passage programming for young people in Africa and across the diaspora?
Rites of passage. I come from the Caribbean. And some people say I come from South America too. So Guyana have this pretty interesting place within the Caribbean and South America. Now, rites of passage is something that we have to go back and fetch in the Caribbean. That's why I said the whole institutionalizing eldership in Toronto specifically for Canada is very important, because rites of passage doesn't happen in the Caribbean the way it's happening in Africa. Africa is thousands of years of experience that are passed on. So rites of passage play a predominant role in the development of our children. If not, we will have rites of passage of Bloods and Crips, those mad gangs that has turned our young generation into criminals and all kind of, no. We need African-centered rites of passage from the continent to be, as again, institutionalized. Because we need to decolonize, we need lots of institutions. Rites of passage is right up there, because with rites of passage, we know where we need to go after the rites of passage, other than the rites of passage of Bloods and Crips. Rastafari would say fireborn. We need African-centered rites of passage, like the works that's been done by Wood Green and some organizations in, and it's supposed to be, rites of passage is supposed to be invested in. People who have money within the African Canadian community supposed to throw money at a rites of passage development program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. So if we kind of focus in on your work now, let's say, how long have you been facilitating rites of passage work? And like, would you say that that's something that you facilitate through your food sovereignty? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that rites of passage is part?
You had freeze a little bit just now, but okay. It's okay.
Okay, so let me ask you the question. If we looking at what you're doing with your food sovereignty initiative, like, how long have you been facilitating rites of passage work? And do you recognize that in your service to the community?
I would say probably 2 years after we started the Afri-Can FoodBasket. Mm-hmm. We did a program called Roots to Fruits. Mm-hmm. I would say that is the beginning of the African-centered focus of the Afri-Can FoodBasket programming as rites of passage in our own way. Might be the traditional way. Right. We started engaging young people in a program called Afri. And Afri, I think it comes from a Twi language that really signifies like garden. Okay. And we had some elders. We had Elder Winston, Dr. Winston Husbands, who spoke about food policy. Mm-hmm. Okay. We had a brother called Yoga. He's from Ghana. He spoke to the resilience of the planet and environment. Because this was the first Black environmental organization. I don't think I ever saw another one until recently. And then we had my mentor in urban agriculture itself, the Honorable Solomon Boye. He's a community garden coordinator at the City of Toronto, who has been a very resourceful person for the program in the Afri-Can FoodBasket. And his contribution to, I would say, our rites of passage direction. Mm-hmm. And last but not the least, my good brother who resides in Ghana, Nene Kofeli, who brought to us the support of being African-centered and also of administrative development. So from that program, Roots to Fruits, that was the beginning of our programming of engaging young people in rites of passage. When I say rites of passage, in the sense that we impart to them the knowledge necessary for youth leadership development. Right. So they must know about, at that time we call it food security, but basically it was Black food sovereignty, where they know about food sovereignty, where they know about African-centered perspectives and way of life, Black studies, and they also know about leadership development. So with the environment, food policy, agriculture, and African-centered knowledge, that was the package from that time when we started with Afri, and then the program evolved into cultivating youth leadership. And we have been doing that, and I am honored to say I've worked with lots of young people over the years in, as you said, the Afri-Can FoodBasket, rites of passage in Black food sovereignty. I like that. That should be in my book. Thank you so much for that.
Wow, you're welcome. So there's blessings going all around for us today. So one of the last couple of questions here, just as you're speaking, what would you say the most important lesson you've learned in all the years of doing this work?
The most important lesson I've learned is a term I studied environmental studies at the York University. I did a master's degree, and is management in a turbulent environment. Our community is a turbulent environment of diversity. So I learned that you have to really engage communities. It's a beautiful experience. I had to engage the Somali community, a totally new community for me, but there was so much wonderful people that I have met in the Ethiopian community, in the Eritrean community, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. That has been something that I really, really cherish. Phrase the question again, let me get on track.
The most important lesson that you've learned over the years of doing this work.
So other than that management in a turbulent environment, I think the single most important is knowledge, the acquiring of knowledge and imparting knowledge. We have to keep learning because education is the key. Knowledge will take us and liberate us because we've been so influenced by white supremacy and colonization. We have to decolonize. So part of the education is decolonize and looking at Sankofa, looking back at the values, because we had everything. We were perfect, okay? We were strong, we were intelligent as people of African descent. So knowledge, looking back and looking forward, I would say is single most important. We need institutions of learning in every sphere of things that we do. I know a lot of us look to Eurocentric ideals. For instance, I like to call them the young Black capitalists. All they think about is accumulating wealth. That is not it for people of African descent. We are cooperative people. We need to know how to do cooperative development. We need to work together. So I know I get in trouble for this, but that's my opinion, that we're so caught up in wealth and vanity. No, we're still in a struggle of liberation. So we need to make sure we're mindful of the excess of capitalism, because like Chancellor Williams said, we are a people of cooperative democracy, how we could work together. So first thing we do is pass. That doesn't mean that we don't make money. You make money in business. You put it back into the community. Like they always say, in the Jewish community, money circulates so much at times. In the South Asian community, but money don't circulate in the people of African descent community. And the reason why, because we don't work cooperatively together.
Right.
We need to embrace cooperative socialism of working together. You know, I mean, they say all these bad things about socialism and Cuba. No. The one for people of African descent is not coercion. Is we sit down and say, you know what? We have to circulate money in our community. We have to do things in our community that can build communal wealth. That is the critical work. Like my sister Janelle was on a program here, and she was talking about Susu, and we need to we need to really have these institutions that we could build to get in our community. We just got $200 million. I hope we do the right thing with that money. I hope we don't waste that money and make sure we, especially young people, benefit from that money for future development. And it's not a waste. Money, a lot of it should be around education so that we could continue making sure that money works for us.
Right, Ashe. Wow. And so to bring things to a close, do you have a call to action for African youth across the world? Like if there's one last thing. Yeah, go ahead.
A call to action, I would say, is that we must have conferences. We must commune with each other. We must speak with each other and plan our future as a people. Some people don't like, oh, meeting. We have to have meetings. That's why you see the elders have meeting under the tree. Meeting under the tree in Africa is where we commune and we develop the knowledge collectively, and we make equitable consensus decisions that are transparent. So I would say for youth all over the world, and I'd like to plug Black food sovereignty, that we make food available that is nutritious and culturally appropriate, and we define our agricultural systems. We define our food needs. We define our food ways as people of African descent. Mm-hmm. Food is the single most important thing for humankind. Sometimes because our experience of transatlantic slavery, working on those farms and those plantations, we don't want to remember, but we have to remember because we have to feed ourselves. So we have to throw away the negative and take this positive of going to the farms, owning farms as wealth of real estate, owning farms as wealth of nutrition and food. So youths around the world need to know about Black food sovereignty. All of them have to be farmers, but food sovereignty is not for farmers. Right. Nutritionists, food policy folks, researchers, chefs, business owners, importers, exporters. The food system is anything from the seed to the table. So there's lots in between there. Food scientists. So not just about farming, it's about the sustainable food system that is resilient like it was before. The idea of Black food sovereignty is nothing new. I know when I say we, the Afri-Can FoodBasket brought it to Canada and popularized it about 5 years ago when we started using the word Black food sovereignty, because we did that to Canada. Just like how we brought food justice to Canada, Afri-Can FoodBasket did that. In no way, no one can dispute that. Just like the great Muhammad Ali, he's the undisputed. I like to say that because we need to do that. We need to put forward our history and let folks know the truth about what it is. It was a long struggle, so young people need to know about Black food sovereignty. Thank you so much for my sister, yes. Jamila, yes, for doing this interview and speaking to my people. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Anan. We appreciate you.
Ashe.
Ashe.